You're watching Pulse for the 28th of March, and it is time for yet more World of Warcraft news. In this week's episode, we take a look at the latest patch 4.3 hotfixes and Dragon Soul difficulty changes, yet another coffee with the devs post, this one explaining looting in Mists of Pandaria, and after that, well, then we're just gonna have a look at a ton of interesting and pretty random Mists of Pandaria goodness from various different sites and sources. This includes previews of areas and the newly remade dungeons, pets, mounts, models, and much more. Let's get straight to the news. First off, if you're not that interested in what's going on the live servers and all you want is Mists of Pandaria news, then you can find timestamps in the description below this video that will skip to any part in this video. That'll just make it easier for you to skip to the parts that you want to see and skip the parts that you don't want to see. So again, check that out below, and now let's have a talk about the latest patch 4.3 hotfixes. This latest set of hotfixes was applied on March the 26th, and I'm glad to report that once again, it's not a very long list. First up, in the Madness of Deathwing encounter, Burning Blood will no longer prematurely spike up to 100 stacks if players damage the arm and the wing tentacles very quickly. I can imagine that would get a little bit annoying if it kept happening. Scroll of Resurrection outfit items designated for healers no longer have strength. The deprecated quests Kiana's Will and the Shattered Blade are now removed from quest logs upon login. And lastly, yes, we're at the end already, they fixed a bug that locked some mobile armory users into away status in-game. That's it for the hotfixes, and you can, as always, read all about this below. Now let's move on to talk about the most recent Dragon Soul difficulty change. During this past week's maintenance, the power of the Aspect spell grew even more powerful, reducing the health and damage dealt of all enemies in the Dragon Soul raid by 15%. If you don't need the help of the Dragon Aspect, the spell can be disabled by talking to Lord Afrastrastras at the beginning of the Dragon Soul raid. Read more about this below, and now let's move on to talk about Mists of Pandaria. We're going to start with the latest coffee with the devs post. This one was once again by Ghostcrawler, and I will tell you now that it's quite a hefty read. One of the topics that they've apparently been getting a lot of questions about is the crazy new loot model they introduced in Mists of Pandaria. While they have answered a couple of questions on the forums about it, they thought it prudent to just put all the information in one place for us. And yes, they definitely put all the information and more in this post. So first off, he just mentions that he should clarify that the systems that they are introducing are actually pretty simple in practice. He's just going into detail here because of the amount of questions that they got about the technical side of things. And I suppose it is good to know more about what's going on behind the scenes in the game that you're playing. So let's have a look at what he says. First off, he talks about personal loot, and he gives an amazingly accurate description of how looting works in today's Raid Finder groups. It goes something like this. The boss dies, the game randomly decides which item off of the boss's loot table drops. The group rolls need, greed, or pass on each item. If you were raiding with a group of friends, you might discuss who should get each item. Even if you ultimately lost, hopefully you're happy that a friend got an upgrade and that your group as a whole is now a little bit stronger. But if you're in Raid Finder, you are quite possibly alone with a bunch of strangers. So if you can need, you probably do, because there's no time for discussion. Some rollers may be AFK, and even if you piss someone off, you aren't likely to have to pay the social cost of doing so, since you'll never see them again. The highest roll wins, drama ensues. So that doesn't sound so good, but here's how the new Raid Finder system will work in Mists of Pandaria. The boss dies, the game automatically decides who won some loot and gives those players a spec appropriate item. Some players may still get mad, but hopefully they're mad at the laws of probability and not at the rest of the raid. That's it. Much more simple. Now there is a more technical explanation of how everything works, and you can check that out in this post. And along with that, Ghostcrawler also reveals the bonus roll system. This is where players will be able to earn tokens from various factions in Pandaria to spend on a bonus roll when attempting to get loot off a boss. That's amazingly cool, and I really like the fact that you can, by playing solo and doing your own thing, improve your raiding experience by getting a bonus roll. Sure, you may not win anything, but having that extra chance is really cool, especially considering that there are always those bosses that have that specific item that you never seem to get. That's obviously not all that's in this post. Ghostcrawler also mentions the area of effect looting that they implemented. I did briefly cover this last week, but you can read more about it in this post. And lastly, he also just covers the future of Valor points. This is a very cool read, especially if you want to know what raiding is going to be like for you in Mists of Pandaria, be it with friends or using the Raid Finder. So if this does interest you, check it out below or over at the official World of Warcraft community sites. Now we're going to move on to what I think is definitely the most interesting part of this episode. We're going to have a look at all the new goodies discovered, reviewed, previewed, or recorded in the Mists of Pandaria beta. There really is a lot, and it is all quite exciting. First off, I will be linking you guys and girls to a few channels right here on YouTube, putting out a bunch of cool and interesting Mists of Pandaria content, so check them out if you have a chance. Otherwise, everything else will be linked below or in different annotations on your screens. And yes, they will all open in new windows too. Because of the sheer amount of stuff I'm going to be covering, I'm not going to be covering it all in full detail. You're going to have to do the exploratory work yourself. So first up, you can check out the latest class changes. The guys over at MMO Champion have a full list of everything that's changed with Mists of Pandaria for all the classes. There's also an updated talent calculator from both Wowhead and MMO Champion. Wowhead has a really cool pet battle preview up. This covers abilities, wild pet locations, and much more. It really does look a lot and feel a lot like Pokemon to me, so I absolutely can't wait to test it out for myself. Then a couple of videos from Jesse Cox. He had a look at the Ragefire Chasm changes in Mists of Pandaria, and then he joined up with WoWcrendor to have a look at Scholomance and the Scarlet Monastery changes. While the Ragefire Chasm changes are mostly lore-based, Scholomance and Scarlet Monastery were entirely redesigned for high levels, so that's quite cool. Then MMO Champion has a raid sneak peek up covering the Mogushan Vaults, the Heart of Fear, and the Terrace of Endless Springs. Some incredibly cool stuff there, but I will warn you guys that I suppose this does contain spoilers. If you don't want to spoil any of the new up-and-coming content for yourself, then you should probably not check this out. The guys from BlizzPlanet have two very useful videos up. These show you how to get to Pandaria at level 85 as both Alliance and Horde. There are a couple of tier 14 armor set previews to have a look at, and then something a lot of people have been looking forward to, the Pandaren Cloud Serpent mounts. MMO Champion has a video up, and as you can see, they are looking absolutely amazing. They are kind of making other races' mounts look bad, and I'm not sure if that's a good thing. Anyway, along with all of this, the Wowhead guys somehow managed to get a Jade Forest preview post up. This includes screenshots and much more. That is, if you were wondering, one of the higher level zones that's not entirely open for testing yet. And then MMO Champion, and yes, we're going to be bouncing between MMO Champion and Wowhead constantly, have a list up of all the scenarios coming in Mists of Pandaria. This includes the Battle for Theramore, something called the Brewmaster scenario, Monk scenario, Panda Fishing Village scenario, Jade Forest's Mogu Ruins, Ancient Mogu Crypt, Proving Grounds, and the Valley of Power. Now, these are obviously not final names, and we're not quite sure what all of these are yet, but we are sure that whatever they are will be discovered or revealed to us soon enough. There are a couple of new factions to read about, and then new Warlock pets. These pets are slightly stronger than the old ones, and they replace your normal pets. You can have a look at them on your screens right now. Then some new artifacts and some new models for some of the other races in the game. There's a pretty interesting post over at WoW Insider that I thought was super useful. It's called Beta Testing 101, How to Stream Your Beta Sessions. This will cover absolutely everything you need to know about setting up a PC for streaming. Very cool, and it's a huge asset for anyone that wants to do something like that. So if that wasn't enough, you can see even more models, achievements, glyphs, spell effects, maps, and much more below. I have no doubt that by the time this video goes up, there'll probably be even more stuff up on MMO Champion, Wowhead, WoW Insider, and those YouTube channels I linked you to. So if you are interested, you should probably check them out and do so regularly. Now though, let's move on to the World of Warcraft smalls. First up, Blizzard are apparently already talking about post-Pandaria WoW expansions. There's a new wallpaper over at the official site. There's a new comic to have a look at. You can check out the latest War College post, this one featuring Arathi Basin. There's a really cool music video right here on YouTube titled My Mountain Eye. It's very well sung, and the lyrics are quite good too. Lastly, also right here on YouTube, have a look at a Pandaria postcard from Olibeth. Sadly, that's all I have for you in the World of Warcraft news this week. Check back here soon for more, like the video and do all that other good stuff, and most importantly, happy Mists of Pandaria Beta.